Okay, let's unpack this. We're diving into some source material you shared with us today, and it's all about something really pervasive, but often invisible.
Yeah, it's about how the design of choices, especially those little default settings, kind of subtly shape our behavior.
Exactly. And it taps right into those cognitive biases we've talked about before.
That's right. The source material really gets into the world of user experience, UX. It shows us that the way options are presented, whether it's online or even in like physical spaces,
Wow.
it's not neutral at all.
It really isn't. It makes you look at everything a bit differently. The source starts with some fantastic examples, almost surprising ones.
Mhm.
Like imagine walking through Seoul's subway and seeing recycling bins labeled default, recycle here. Just tells you what to do.
Or that Kenyan election ballot example where the incumbent is listed first. That's a classic nudge, isn't it? Pushing you towards the familiar.
It really is. And then there's the French flex one.
Oh, yeah, the travel insurance being pre-selected.
Right. And most people, they just leave it checked.
They do. And these aren't accidents, right? They're deliberate design choices. They leverage how our brains tend to work.
Exactly. So our mission here for this deep dive is basically to understand the powerful ideas in these sources, get a handle on the specific biases they're talking about.
And really see how much these hidden forces might be affecting the choices you make, every single day.
Ready to jump in?
Absolutely. Let's start where the source does, with two really powerful, kind of intertwined concepts: default bias and status quo bias.
Okay.
The core idea is, well, it sounds simple, but the implications are huge. People have this really strong tendency to just stick with options that are already chosen for them. That's the default.
Oh.
Or they just maintain things as they are. That's the status quo.
Yeah. And the examples the source uses here are just, wow, really stark. Take organ donation laws.
Yeah, that one's incredible.
In countries where the default is opt-out, so
Yeah.
you're automatically a donor unless you actively say no,
Mm-hmm.
donation rates are sky high, like
Yeah.
around 90%.
90%. Compare that to opt-in countries where you have to actively sign up to be a donor.
And the rates just plummet down to maybe 15%.
15. That massive difference, 15 versus 90, is pretty much driven by that one little default setting.
It really shows the power of inertia, doesn't it? The path of least resistance.
Definitely. And it's not just these huge life or death things. The source mentions research, like a key study from 2001.
Right, the retirement savings one.
Exactly. Madrian and Shea. They showed how automatic enrollment in 401k plans dramatically increased participation and savings rates.
Because if you have to actively join, fewer people do it.
Right. But if you're automatically in and have to actively opt out, most people just stay in.
They just stick with the default. The source even points to research from way back, like 88.
Samuelson and Zeckhauser.
Yeah. Showing this status quo preference even in, like, completely hypothetical choices. People stuck with the initial option even when changing cost them nothing.
And newer papers, like one from 2021 mentioned in the source, keep confirming it. Defaults are just incredibly sticky. They have this heavy bias.
And it seems to be a global thing.
Pretty much. The source gives that example of airlines in India defaulting trip insurance to on,
Uh-huh.
and something like 95% of customers just accept it. Now, the exact effectiveness might vary a bit culturally, sure, but that core bias towards the pre-selected option seems universal.
Okay, so that's the power of what's already there, the
Yeah.
default, the status quo. Now, the force kind of builds on this with the idea of choice architecture.
Yes, choice architecture. Think of it as the designer's toolkit, basically. It's how you arrange the whole environment where choices get made.
So like introducing options or taking them away or just changing the order.
Exactly, or how prominent they are. All of that can dramatically shift the outcome. And this ties right into that concept of nudging, which Thaler and Sunstein made famous. It's used everywhere.
Ah, nudging. Okay,
Yeah.
so choice architecture is kind of the how of nudging.
Precisely. It's the mechanism. The source has some great examples here, too. Like a Chinese app wanting to boost charity donations.
What did they do?
They just rearranged the menu items, made the donation option more visible, easier to find, and guess what?
Donations went up.
Yep, or that cafeteria in Finland.
Oh, the salad bar one?
Yeah. They moved the salads right to the front of the line, and suddenly people started taking more salads. It was the first thing they saw, the easiest option.
So you're designing the path, making the, quote, right choice, the easiest one, but you're not actually forcing anyone. You could still go get the fries later.
Exactly. The fries are still there, but the salad was right there first. It's about setting the stage, subtly nudging the odds without taking away freedom.
That makes a lot of sense. Okay, what about the endowment effect? The source brings this up next. That sounds Interesting.
It really is. The core research on this goes back to the early 90s, Kahneman, Netsch, and Thaler. The key idea is that we tend to value something we already have much more than we'd be willing to pay to get it if we didn't own it.
Okay, hang on. So if I give you like this podcast mug,
Uh-huh.
suddenly this mug feels more valuable to you than an identical one right next to it that isn't yours yet.
That's the basic idea, yeah. The source mentions studies showing this across cultures, like Japanese consumers valuing a branded mug they were given more highly than one they might just buy.
Ah.
And in the digital world, designers use this all the time. Think about free trials.
Ah, right. You get used to the premium features.
Exactly, you temporarily own them. Or virtual goods, unlocking an avatar, getting some starter coins in a game or an app.
It builds that feeling of possession, even if it's just temporary or digital.
Yeah.
Makes you less likely to want to lose it.
Precisely. And the source notes there's a bit of academic debate on the why is it loss aversion, regret aversion. But for practical design purposes, the endowment effect. It's a really powerful tool.
Got it. Okay, and the last bias the source talks about in this section, specifically for design, is negativity bias.
Right. The old idea that bad is stronger than good, basically. Negative stuff sticks with us more.
Yeah. So how does that play out in design?
Well, it leads to something called the ironic effect. The source points out if you have a button or a sign that says don't do X, it often makes people think about X, and weirdly can make them more likely to actually do it.
Mm-hmm. Like the classic cartoon thing, whatever you do, don't push the big red button.
Exactly. It draws your attention right to the forbidden thing.
Mm.
So good designers know this. They aim for positive framing instead.
So instead of don't delete this, maybe something like keep this item.
Right. Or think about safety instructions. They often avoid don't language for this very reason all over the world. In apps, designers usually prefer positive feedback, like success, instead of lots of warning signs, unless they're absolutely essential.
Because, as the research mentioned reminds us, one bad experience can outweigh several good ones.
Exactly. That negativity bias is potent.
Okay, so we've got these key biases laid out. Default, status quo, endowment, and how negativity affects framing. Now let's look at how designers actually use these. The source calls this section applied leverage.
Right. This is where the rubber meets the road, how these principles get put into action. First up, the source talks about UX defaults, and it draws a contrast between sort of marketing defaults and what it calls ethical defaults.
Okay, what's the difference there?
Well, a typical marketing default might be like you sign up for something online and the box for yes, send me newsletters is already checked.
Ah, okay. They're using that default bias to get you on their list, maybe without you really thinking about it.
Exactly. The source contrasts that with an ethical design where maybe that same box is unchecked by default. You have to actively tick it if you want the emails.
That feels more respectful of the user's choice, doesn't it?
It does. And this isn't just websites. The source mentions public policy examples like Germany's energy choice forms.
Oh yeah, you mentioned that. The default is renewable energy.
Right. If you want fossil fuels, you have to actively choose to opt out of the green default. It uses the default to nudge towards a societal goal.
Interesting. Okay, what about leveraging status quo bias?
The source suggests that when companies introduce big changes, like maybe a totally new internal system like HR software, they might roll it out initially with minimal changes to how it looks or works. Keep it feeling familiar.
Ah, so it doesn't feel like such a jarring leap, easing people in.
Exactly. Leveraging that preference for the status quo makes users less resistant to adopting the new thing eventually. Or they might present new options alongside old ones, but highlight the new ones.
Got it. And the endowment effect in practice. How do designers use that?
To build user commitment early, the source has a great example. A digital wallet app.
Okay.
When you sign up, maybe they give you a tiny amount of practice tokens or a very small starting balance.
Ah, so you feel like you already own something in the app.
Precisely. It creates that little bit of attachment, makes you feel invested, and maybe less likely to just delete the app later, less likely to churn, as they say.
Gives you that initial stake. Something to lose if you walk away. Makes sense.
And then choice architecture gets applied through strategic ordering. This stuff is everywhere once you look for it.
Like websites listing the most popular plan first.
Yeah. Or recommended options first. Featured items.
Or, like the source mentioned with Brazilian restaurants, putting high-profit dishes right at the top of the menu. That acts like an anchor, right?
Exactly. A classic anchoring default. The order really matters. putting healthier food choices first in a canteen list, or maybe listing the safest privacy settings at the top of a configuration menu.
It's all choice architecture, guiding your eye, making certain things seem more normal or recommended.
It really shows how deliberate this all can be, but the source makes a really, really crucial point here: cultural testing.
Ah, right. Because what works in one place might not work somewhere else.
Huge point. You absolutely cannot assume that a default setting or a piece of choice architecture that works great in, say, the US will work the same way in Japan or Kenya.
Why is that?
Well, the source mentions things like different levels of trust and authority, or varying degrees of individualism versus collectivism. An opt-out default might be seen as helpful and efficient in one culture,
Uh-huh.
but in another, it might trigger suspicion, like, why are they choosing for me?
So you absolutely have to test these things with local users.
Yeah.
A/B testing becomes critical.
Essential, especially when you're dealing with these subtle psychological nudges. Okay, so now that we're more aware of how design can guide us, the source offers something really useful: a defense radar.
I like the sound of that. Building your own internal radar to spot these influences. How do we start? How do we notice when a default is pushing us?
Step one is just conscious awareness. When you see a form, a settings menu, even just how things are laid out, pause for a second, ask yourself, was a choice already made for me here?
Okay.
And critically, can I easily change it? The source really hammers this. Read the fine print, scroll through all the options before you hit accept or continue, see what's pre-checked.
Don't just blaze through clicking yes. Simple advice, but probably very effective. What about spotting that status quo framing?
Be a little skeptical when something's presented as just the norm or how things are done or everyone uses the setting.
Right.
Ask why that's the standard. Is it really the best option for you? Or is it just the path of least resistance that's been there forever? Are there alternatives maybe hidden away?
Well, good questions to ask. And those endowment tactics.
Yeah.
Especially with free trials.
Yeah, this is a big one. Remember, even temporary possession makes you feel attached. So before you convert that free trial to paid, or before you spend real money upgrading something you got for free initially, just take a breath, step back, think about what you had before the freebie.
Okay.
Are you truly getting value that matches the cost now? Or are you mostly just feeling reluctant to give up something you briefly felt like you owned?
That pause for reflection seems key. And lastly, spotting negative framing in UX.
Right. If you see warnings like "don't do X," or buttons phrased negatively, or just overly alarming language, try flipping it in your head.
Also,
Ask yourself, okay, why are they emphasizing the thing they don't want me to do? Or how could they say this positively? It helps you see the designer's intent and kind of bypass that potential ironic effect we talked about.
this has been really eye-opening. Seriously, it makes you want to scrutinize every interface you encounter now. The source leaves us with a couple of exercises to make this practical.
Yeah, they're good. The first is a self-reflection exercise.
Yeah.
Basically, the next time you install an app, sign up for something, fill out any form online.
Okay.
Before you click that final button, scroll through everything. Look for checkboxes, drop-downs, anything pre-selected, and ask yourself honestly, if this wasn't the default, would I have picked it myself?
And the source suggests maybe even making a note of it, like one example a day.
Yeah, just to build that muscle, that consistent default awareness. It trains your radar over time.
That makes sense. What's the second exercise?
It's a spot it in the wild assignment. The source suggests looking at, say, 3 different digital forms from different places, maybe a subscription sign up in China, a government form in Kenya, a US survey, whatever. Identify the defaults in each, what's pre-checked, how do you think it's trying to steer behavior?
And then also find a real-world example, like the grocery store checkout.
Exactly. Sweets at the checkout, healthy options at eye level, that kind of thing. And for both the digital and real-world examples, take it one step further.
Which is?
Think about how it could have been designed differently. How could you flip the defaults? How could you rearrange the layout to encourage a different outcome? It helps you see the design behind the experience, not just the experience itself.
Wow. Okay, this whole deep dive really hammers home a core point. Design is never neutral, is it?
Not at all. It's this powerful force using our own cognitive glitches, default, status quo, endowment, negativity bias to guide what we do. Sometimes ethical, sometimes maybe less so.
And these forces are shaping choices for you, the listener, every single day, often completely under the radar.
Yeah, from huge things like how you save for retirement down to what you choose for lunch or what privacy settings you just click accept on.
Think back to that organ donation statistic the source highlighted, that incredible gap between 15% and 90%,
Yeah.
driven mostly by just how the choice was framed, by the default.
It really makes you stop and think, doesn't it? How many other behaviors, big societal trends or small personal habits, are being shaped right now just by the way choices are presented?
What else might look completely different if somebody just decided to flip the default setting?
This is a powerful question.
Definitely something to keep in mind. So keep that defense radar up. Maybe try those exercises and keep asking why things are set up the way they are. Thanks for digging into this with us.